There's so many transferable skills that everyone has. And then you add your passion to it and whatever else you've done to really align to that industry and that type of role. Now we weave all that together and you can tell a story that's really interesting
Mm.
and authentic.
Hello, and welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm Brittany Cates, your host on this incredible journey of career transformation. Get ready for inspiring stories, valuable insights, and a roadmap to shift your mindset towards a more fulfilling professional life. In each episode, we explore the remarkable journeys of individuals who made a career change, offering motivation, strategies, and the confidence to pursue your dreams. Whether you're feeling stuck, contemplating a change, or just seeking a dose of inspiration, this podcast is your weekly companion. Tune in every Thursday as we uncover the secrets to shifting your day job. Hello, and thank you for joining me today on this episode that I am really excited to share with you. Before I jump into introducing my guest, I would like to share with you my free offer. It's a brief video training about how to successfully shift into your dream career now and avoid the one big mistake that I see women making when it comes to searching for jobs online. In this training, I will address this big mistake and teach you how to reframe your job search strategy in order to build your confidence and take more effective actions. The reason why this is so important is because by understanding this one common mistake that people make, it will empower you to not only avoid it, but take control of your career transition. So if you're interested in this training, please send me a DM on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, and I would be happy to share the link with you and help you along on your career shift journey. Today's episode features someone whose work I absolutely love. Her name is Lisa Virtue. And I've been following her on Instagram for a while now, and I'm constantly inspired by her thoughtful advice on career change and personal growth. She just has this knack for breaking down the career transition process in a way that feels approachable and empowering, and I knew I had to bring her on the podcast. In this episode, Lisa shares her journey of leaving an executive role in the athletics and wellness space to launch her own coaching business during the pandemic. We dive into the triggers that often push people to consider a career change and the powerful role transferable skills and storytelling play in finding your next opportunity. Lisa offers practical, actionable tips on everything from resume writing to networking and even mindset shifts for staying positive during a job search. One of my favorite parts of our conversation was hearing her advice about getting really clear on your goals and how to authentically leverage your network to uncover those hidden opportunities. This episode is packed with so much wisdom about being intentional, reflecting on what you truly want, and communicating your value in an authentic way. Whether you're actively exploring a career change or just starting to entertain the idea, I know you're going to walk away with insights you can put in action today. So, grab your favorite drink, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into this incredible conversation with Lisa Virtue. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me, Brittany.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast because I do follow you on Instagram, and I think you share such amazing career advice, very practical, as well as mindset. So I'm excited for you to share more with my audience here on the episode today. Before we jump into all of that, can you talk about your career journey and where you started, what it looked like, and how it's evolved where you are now?
Sure. Yeah. I'll try not to get hung up on the early days because it's so easy. Just like my clients, when we're talking about telling your story in an interview, right? It's so easy to start at the very beginning and then we get hooked there and we don't get to the relevant parts. So, most recently, I'll start with that. 4 years ago, I decided to make a big transition in my own career. I had a pretty clear path within athletics, fitness, wellness, so that space. And in management, got to the executive suite myself, used coaches along the way. So valuable. Once I discovered that area, I was like, why wasn't this there earlier for me in my career? Which is why I have this passion now to help others. So during the pandemic, everything going on, we were at a private athletic club, first time in 125 years. We shut the doors right during COVID. Big deal. We had to lay off most of the team. And I was looking around at things like Black Lives Matter. That was on my doorstep in Portland, Northeast Portland, and literally on my doorstep, right? Parades going down the street. And we were just really in awe of everyone standing up for themselves at that time and thinking, life is so short, right? There's this mentality and this shift in our mindset. And so for myself, I had been stewing with it for a couple years, just almost the higher I got, the less drive I had or less passion for the work. I had shifted a little bit within the club to a different area, which was great, but that transition was hard, very political. Learned a lot about politics in the workplace, as we all do, and realized that what my purpose was the coaching side. And I had coaches myself, like I had mentioned, and they had already started working with me on this. What do you want to do long term? What do you want to do after this part of your journey? What does that look like? But at the time, the golden handcuffs of I can't leave my day job. So always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I even studied that in college quite a bit. And my family had businesses, small businesses. And so I always dabbled with it. Always, I guess you could call it now as the gig economy. I was a part of, always had a side gig. And when I was looking around thinking, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take this leap of faith. We don't know how long this lockdown is going to go, but now my mom needs a home and I'm her caretaker. My daughter's home all day. I need to be her caretaker. And I was sitting at a table on Zoom calls for 12 hours a day that went nowhere, just spun our wheels, felt like I had no voice. It was very odd. There was a lot of gender bias going on too. And so I just looked at my husband and I said, I'm going to quit. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to take this leap of faith. I didn't have anything lined up. I'm going to start my own business. I have no idea financially how we're going to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. It's finally time. So, like most career transitioners, usually something leads up to it. It's not out of the blue, right? Oh, this meeting bothered me. I'm going to quit cold turkey. That's not what it is. But there was another instance of something going on. And I said, you know what? I better leave before I say something that's going to ruin my reputation. I like the people I work with. I don't want to hurt those relationships. And I really want to go out when we had a huge project that I was wrapping up and like getting that to the finish line. So I felt like it was time.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's just interesting that you talk about like this perspective shift that everybody was having at the time and how it affected your decision making in your everyday. And how it brought things from the shadows, like things that you had been thinking about dealing with, but not quite tackling yet, and brought them like front and center. And what a like bold move to just be like, okay, I'm done. I don't even know what's next, but I'll figure it out.
Oh, yeah. It's great because I was the first of most of the executive team that were women that left within 9 months. I think it was that all of us were gone except for one.
Yeah.
And they all waited till they had other jobs lined up.
Mhm.
And so that was very indicative of, hey, started this snowball effect. But I had one of my big mentors was like, how in the world did you quit without having a job lined up? And I said, well, I'm that risk taker. This is why I've been successful in my career.
Mm.
That's my personality. It's not for everyone. My father-in-law constantly looks at me like, I don't know how you have your own business. I could never do that. He's been in the same company since he was 17. He's
Yes.
about to retire. So it's not for everyone. I don't recommend it for everyone, but there's always a trigger that happens. And I think it's interesting. And like I mentioned, there's always a lead up. So for any career transitioners that I work with, I'm sure that you work with your audience that's listening, what is it that's leading to it and what's the trigger? And if you haven't had the trigger yet, how will you know that it is the trigger?
Yeah.
For me, it was like, I can't keep working in this environment anymore. And that was part of the reason I was looking to transition anyway. And then it all came to a head and there was external factors that were very inspiring, right?
Yeah.
And other people advocating for themselves. And then it wasn't easy, but
No.
I've never looked back.
I think it's interesting talking about the triggers because obviously a career transition, like you said, is not just all of a sudden. And as you are like evaluating what do I want my life to look like? What are my values? Is what I'm doing currently within line with those, right? And I think a lot of times it's more of we have a life circumstance, right? that is often the trigger. You have a new baby and your life is totally different. And then you need something different in your career in order for it to be sustainable. Or you have all these people moving home and you have to take care of them now. And so I think a lot of times those are the triggers, even though there have been signs all along that
Yeah.
leading up to it.
Yeah, there has to be that cherry on top or someone
Yeah.
kicking you out of the nest. Something has to happen. And a lot of you mentioned, like, women with having children, also death, loss can really trigger that. I have a lot of people where they have a loved one who's passed, and so now they're really thinking again back to life is short. What am I doing with my life? Or something like that happens. I used to work in the fitness industry, and I was even certified as a personal trainer and mostly managed trainers, but did some of that work myself as well. And it was the same thing with weight loss. What's the trick? Why is someone standing in front of you going, I'm interested in personal training? Okay, why now? What happened? And most of the time, we don't even realize there was a trigger because we've been thinking about it for so long.
It makes me think of the thoughts you have today are just a continuation of the thoughts you had yesterday.
Yeah.
And if our whole life, or maybe even for a big chunk of our career, we've been thinking, oh, well, this isn't it, or I'm not happy, or this these politics bother me, or whatever. If you thought about that yesterday, you're probably going to keep thinking about it today.
Yeah.
And then again, okay, then what is the catalyst that's going to
Mhm.
are you wanting to live in that still? I think it's so relatable to like weight, dieting, training, fitness training, right? Do you want to live in that for the rest of your days? Or has something come to your attention that has really made you say, no, I'm ready now to take the
Mhm.
action, the decisive
Yeah.
action?
And unfortunately, it's usually a big thing, right? So a disease, or you went to your doctor and, ooh, I have to do something because I want to be around for my family, or I physically can't help my children the way I want to. Whatever that physical thing is, that tends to be on the fitness side. And it's similar in career where it's, okay, am I, what do I wait until there is that trigger? Like for me, it was a
Yeah.
big deal what was going on. I had women coming to me saying, what the heck's going on with the executive team? Like we had a new general manager. And so there was a lot of stewing anyway about change before the pandemic and lockdown. And so there was all these people coming to me and noticing things. And it got to that point where I had to have something big happening for me to make a change.
Mhm.
But I don't necessarily recommend it because what I did was cold turkey,
Yeah.
right? Because it got so big. What a lot of people do, like maybe they want to start their own business or they have a call to coaching or something like that. They usually say, okay, I'll do that side hustle, but I got to keep my day job because of financially makes sense. But how will you know, again, what catalyst, what
Mhm.
trigger, how will you know when it's time to go full time? And if you don't have that foresight and that plan, you might get into that anxiety and it might never come. So again, like being really real with yourself. How do you know? And then do you need to change completely careers or do you just need to change your environment? And for me, that was really interesting because for about 2 years, I had dabbled with, I wasn't like on a full job search at that point because I was making decent money. I had my young family, a lot of commitments, home renovations, you name it, doing it financially. And so at that point, it was looking at, do I stay in this same industry? Because a lot of parts of it definitely filled my bucket. I wouldn't have been there 20 plus years if it
Yeah.
hadn't been. But as I did that evaluation when I quit, too, again, back to the clarity evaluation and working with a coach again, I was like, no, there's parts of this I just want to shed. I don't want to do
Mhm.
that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. But I do love these moments. And that for me was coaching and team development, all of that. And even when people would come to me with their resumes and things. And I also loved recruiting teams and being on the other side of the
Mhm.
job search, both sides actually. Love meeting new people, learning about them, and realized that was my common thread throughout my entire life. Going back to even when I was 16 and I was a water polo captain, I was coaching other team members. I was putting them through mindset training. You know what that was? I didn't even know it was a thing. And so it naturally, I realized, oh my gosh, this is what I'm naturally good at and I love to do.
Yeah.
That's that sweet spot, right? Which now I work with people on. But maybe it's just that you're in a team doesn't appreciate you. But the work you do, you actually love the work. You just need to change organizations or teams within the organization.
It's like oftentimes either you're ready for a new challenge that where your current circumstance isn't actually giving you that opportunity, or it's there's something in, like you said, the team member maybe, or you don't feel valued. And so you can find another place where you do feel more valued, but still do the same work. Yeah. And then there's, and I think the thing that's interesting that you said was like, you were able to reflect back to when you were so much younger. And it's just so interesting to me. Like, we we often need that time in order to figure it out, so we have the hindsight to look back and recognize the common thread and recognize where our strengths lie, and so there is so much value in, um, doing the best you can with the knowledge you have until you have enough knowledge to make a different decision, right? That's just part of life. And so looking back on what you have done and what your career has been like, you're not wasting any of that. Um,
Right.
it's so valuable and it's all this information that you've gathered over time to help you make a new and better decision for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And that reminds me of what we also wanted to talk about with storytelling. So often, job candidates and career transitioners think that doesn't relate at all. What I did over there, maybe it was a medical career and I'm moving into operations and something like that, like people operations, let's say. But oh, I was going down this doctor path and I want to switch, right? I talk to people like that. What you did over there and even your education and how you showed up and maybe interpersonal conflict, projects you worked on. There's so many transferable skills that everyone has. And then you add your passion to it and whatever else you've done to really align to that industry and that type of role. Now we weave all that together and you can tell a story that's really interesting
Mm.
and authentic. And everyone has a different career journey. People get really hung up on, I don't think this is linear. There's very few jobs out there that should be linear, actually, especially the higher you get. You want
Mhm.
people with like depth of experience. You want people that have lived and understand what it's like to be on teams and can lead a team because of the richness or interesting experience they bring to the table.
I love that reminder. And it makes you think. I had a team meeting this week, and one of our newer employees was sharing how she transitioned into this role, and it was very different from what she did before. And then we went around the room, and like everybody had done something like that, right? Like they were in a completely different field and just sharing how it morphed and changed and got them to where they are today. And so to have that kind of a team where there's so many people with so much different background and experience and come together with one purpose at this company. If you're interviewing for a place that doesn't value that and that doesn't recognize the value that comes with the diversity, then that's not somewhere you really want to be.
I totally agree with you. And bringing that to the storytelling again back to interview, right? Let's say interview before you get on the team. How you weave that together is again just finding those common threads and being able to keep it really specific to the job at hand. And I think
Mm.
that's where people get hung up. Even education, a lot of my clients will say, "Oh, yeah, I've got a bachelor's in maybe it's music," right? And they poo it. Like now I'm a project manager, but oh, at one time I wanted to do XYZ. Maybe it was I wanted to be an orchestra conductor.
Yeah.
And now I'm in project management. That has nothing to do with it. Oh my gosh, what if you're doing project management at a manufacturing company that is creating the instrument? There's so many little pieces that you can pull from, again, back to your passion and what you're interested in. That will make you a standout candidate over someone else that doesn't have that background and that passion. So don't poo poo it. Don't
Yeah.
put it to the side.
Yeah.
Recognize that bringing those things forward when they're relevant to the job
Mhm.
is so powerful.
In my job search, I know you need to tailor your resume to the specific job
Mhm.
description. And it's the same concept, right? Tailor your story to
Mhm.
make sure that you're highlighting the strengths that you have that relate specifically to that role.
Yeah, exactly. And don't talk about everything under the sun that you've done. I think that's the same thing with resumes. I think people are getting much better at writing resumes because there's so much great information out there now. I still see a lot. I do resume reviews all the time. I still see people get hung up in their own stories and what they can do. But people are like, but I can do all these things. I need to show them I can do all these things. So they get in an interview. I need to say all of these things, or a story pops in their head that's not related
Yeah.
to the job. Okay, keep going through that Rolodex in your brain and find a different story because you're going to lose your audience. They're going to think this person doesn't understand the role.
Mhm.
It's the opposite. What I'm trying to do is convey I'm flexible, I'm adaptable, I've got a lot of skills to bring to the table. That's great. So does every other candidate. How are you uniquely qualified for this job? And how are you going to solve these problems? And do you understand what these problems are? And you're just illustrating that with your storytelling.
Mhm.
So I know as you're talking, I know there's a lot of how, like, people are always about the how, right? How do I write my resume? Or what exactly should it look like? What should it be? Like when you said people get hung up on like details or whatever. I know I've talked to people where they're like, yeah, I have like my whole entire career
Yeah.
history on the, and it's, oh, wait, I can cut out. I don't have to show everything, but you have all these preconceived notions of things you've learned as you're growing up or as you do research. You're like, I have to have all of this on my resume. And it's, no, we can
Yeah.
tailor it. We can, and I think it's the same thing with the storytelling, right? What are the rules? What's
Yeah.
this outline that I would follow
Great
to
question.
tell an effective story?
So, a couple things, couple thoughts there. One is keeping things simple is the hardest thing to do in the world. Even Steve Jobs said it, keep it simple, right? So, that's always what I get back to with my clients. And when you have someone like a career coach or a resume writer to help you with that, absolutely helps. But you can do it yourself if you've got the right template, you've got the right guide, and you're following it and you don't dismiss the advice. I see that a lot where it's, I read over here and I read over there, but I think this is really important for me. Okay. The only time you should actually create a full CV, and people interchange these words, but they're very different, resume and CV. A CV is very specific for mostly academia and medical. You should put everything on there. It's going to be pages and pages of information. Great. That's for those types of roles. All the rest of us, keep it to 2 pages maximum, and only keep it to 2 pages and not one if you have experience. So if you're a new grad, intern, et cetera, you should have a nice 1 pager. Most likely you're not going to have enough to fill 2 pages. And then it just looks like verbose and inauthentic, or you're like, is this real? This person just graduated college and they're claiming all these things. Is that real? Probably not. But I would happy to talk to anyone that thinks they should have 2 pages in that scenario. Normally a 1 pager if you're a new grad, early in your career, or the flip side, when you're like a CEO candidate. Now you have
Mhm.
this pretty 1 pager, right? Everyone else in between, 2 pages is a really nice sweet spot. A lot of people wonder, I'm at 3, I can't get it down. Again, back to the edit. Are you making it really focused and specific so that the recruiter scans your resume and they can literally check the boxes you're qualified?
Mm.
And I say recruiter and eyeballs, not computer and technology. There is some of that now coming out with some AI. They're supposed to disclaim that to you, that they're going to use AI.
Mhm.
Most states are now having laws around that. Not everyone here in the US and internationally, I can't speak to it. But if it's an applicant tracking system and it's reputable, like ADP is one that will ask you, you have to opt in.
Mm.
May we use our AI technology to help screen you, right? You're also feeding your information into their iterative AI. So keep that in mind too for your own privacy, whatever your choice is there. But majority of companies can't afford these systems,
Mm.
and they have recruitment teams that have their own processes and are really slow to adopt it, quite frankly. So all the recruiting teams out there, there's podcasts you can listen to too. Of course, that's my job. I keep up on all of those things. I have recruiters in my network. They're still saying, "Oh my gosh, stop saying computers are reading your resumes. We are still looking at your resumes." Albeit very quickly, even more quickly now, because it's so easy for people to produce a good resume.
Yeah.
Lots of candidates out there. So if you keep it to 2 pages and you follow a nice template, I've got a free template on my website too at hercareerstudio.com. Go snag it. Snag a copy. It's just a Google Doc, keeps it really simple. You should have certain fields that are pretty standard, right? But there's some optional ones. So again, if you need to trim it and you have a summary statement that's really long and you think I'm going to stuff it and I have key achievements, but now you're not able to put the experience that's really relevant, well, get rid of that fluff. So again, just being really cognizant of what is going to make the most impact for a recruiter to say, check, this person's qualified. I want to interview them. Where you find, if you're wondering, like, how do I know what their checklist is? Go look at the job description, go to the qualifications, make sure it's very obvious, and don't underestimate location.
Mm.
I even have a resume that came in today for a resume review. Again, on the header, it's funny, I say things like this on TikTok and Instagram where I'm like, put your phone number, things like that, right? People just forget or they think, I don't need that. It
Yeah.
put it in the application tracking system, the ATS. Why do I need it on my resume too? Because you're making it easy and you're going to be consistent everywhere. You don't know what the recruiter's process is. So
Mhm.
make it easy for them. If you don't have city and state here in the US on your resume, recruiter most likely will just bypass you.
Hmm.
It's a really easy way to get disqualified because they might not think they can legally hire you. They don't know where you're living, right?
Okay.
Especially for remote roles. People are like,
Yeah.
oh, it shouldn't matter where I live. I'm applying to remote roles in the US. Even there, there's stipulations where they can hire from. There might be certain states they cannot hire. And regardless, recruiters want to know where you live. So that's a big one. I just thought it was
Yeah.
funny that I had a resume today again that came through and I was like, everything else looks beautiful.
Yeah.
You might get disqualified because you don't have your city and state.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's some basic things too, I think people got to really pay attention to.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so valuable and helpful, especially you hear everywhere. Oh, like AI is reading your resume. So I love that information. That's super helpful.
And what's more important actually for the computer disqualifying you, because people might be listening and go, this can't be right. I get disqualified so fast. No one's reading my resume, right? Sometimes that happens. A lot of reasons could be going on for that. One, it could be that they are not actively recruiting. So they've toggled on the system to just send everyone that applies from here on out an automatic
Mhm.
disqualification. Okay. So it could literally be that simple that you just missed the timing vote. The next thing could be that you had a question, one of those required questions as you're typing out the application that they toggle on behind the scenes is required to answer a certain way for you to pass through to the next step,
Mhm.
which is for them to have eyes on your resume. So those are called qualifying questions. Those are really key for people to pay attention to. And there might be things that you just don't know they are really requiring because it didn't say it in the job posting. Like
Mhm.
one can be an advanced degree. Some people don't have their bachelor's yet, or they haven't gotten their bachelor's, but they have 20 years of experience. They get so frustrated because they're getting automatically disqualified. It could literally be because you said no on that question. And the hiring
Mhm.
manager is just, for some reason, adamant that they want someone with that degree.
Mhm.
So we see things like that too. So we can control what we can control. We try to
Right.
dismiss the rest. And this is also why I really say you have to have a resume because even if you get a referral, you need to have a resume to produce to show that you're qualified. But right now, we're seeing that the most powerful thing to get noticed is to get a referral at some level.
Yeah.
And so that power of networking and reaching out is going to be your best friend.
That was my next question. Okay, let's say I know there's so many ways to just apply and cross your fingers and hope that something happens. And then there's the other side of it, of being intentional and like networking with people that work there or someone you know that knows somebody or whatever. So, what is your advice on getting yourself noticed, especially in this right now? It's pretty challenging. There's so many candidates out there. I know, especially in like the space I work in, there's
Yeah,
just, it's
so many. Well,
very
and it can be so
challenging.
confusing too because of all the noise, right? So there is a
Mhm.
ton of advice. There is a lot of technology coming out of all sorts of different parts of the world. I actually consult with TruePath.ai, which is doing some really cool things with, they have a resume writer that you can use. So I do recommend you go check them out too. But they're bringing through personality assessments to try and beef up, like, how
Mm.
do you uniquely in your personality how can you highlight that on your resume and in your interviews? And let's bring that side to the equation.
Yeah.
So they're doing some really cool things, and I'm working with them behind the scenes on some of their strategy, which is really exciting. But in the meantime, how do you get noticed? When you're going and using technology that does things like sprays the market for you, sometimes people on
Mm.
LinkedIn will say, I applied to 1,000 jobs in the last
Yeah.
few weeks. Okay. Most likely they've found a tool that says, we'll apply for all these jobs for you. Upload your resume, answer our questions, and now tell us where you want to go and apply.
Sure.
And that happens, all of a sudden, you're swamping the market. This is why recruiters are just getting so many applicants because there's tools like that out there.
Okay.
You're not targeting it specifically to that role.
Mhm.
So you're doing a generic dump.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, even pieces like your resume going into the applicant tracking system on the other end, because there's so many different tools that have different fields and they're set up differently. There's no standard in the industry.
Mm.
It could be just coming through as a jumbled mess for the recruiters. So to do things like that, I caution people. I say, stay more focused. Find the titles that you really want to focus on. Have one or two resumes to focus on those titles. Quickly edit them. And then if it's somewhere where you're really excited about and you don't know anybody, you can't find a connection somehow, there's something I call a blind referral. And I have a guide on this on YouTube too. So again, hercareerstudio.com. We're putting all these things out there, especially for women, because I'm trying to help the women that are like I was when I was younger. Go get free resources. But blind referral means, okay, I don't know anyone, but I have great people in my network that just tell me how I can help. Right?
Mhm.
Maybe it's a former boss of yours or even a family member that's highly connected or has a great job title, works for a recognizable company. If they send an email to the hiring manager on your behalf, not you, right? This is
Yeah.
social proofing your job search. Having someone else put that out there for you says, hey, this person's great. It'd be worthwhile to have a conversation. Okay. Ding. All of a sudden you're going to have eyeballs on it.
Mhm.
The person gets curious. It's not the recruiter. The recruiter gets inundated. They're ignoring those messages. Not even worth it.
Yeah.
The hiring manager doesn't get as many. You also have to find the hiring manager. So that's a fun
Mhm.
deep dive. You find them, you find their email, you draft it for your connection, make it super simple for them. And they send it and they just say, hey, I know Brittany. She's fabulous. I know you're looking for this kind of candidate. Here's how I know her. It'd be worthwhile to check her out and have a conversation.
Mm.
If I was a hiring manager, every was for
Yeah.
20 years, every time I got a referral, I'm like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah.
I go and look at that resume. Or I tell the recruiting team, make sure you flag this and check it out.
Yeah.
That means you're not getting bypassed. It
Mhm.
also means if for some reason you were automatically disqualified or there was a red flag, they look at you again.
Okay.
So it could be a case of here, back to the hiring manager, the recruiting team says, here's the resume, although our system flagged it to not be qualified for these reasons. Maybe it's you don't have the degree,
Right.
but now you're getting eyes on it. And that hiring manager might go, oh, that's okay. I like their experience.
Mhm.
So things like that can help in your favor. But I also think a lot of people actually do know people that they don't realize they know and have
Mhm.
connections, even like your family members. Do you know what Uncle Larry does? Do you know who he's connected to? You probably see him at Thanksgiving dinner and then go on your way. Go on your merry way. And maybe there's a wealth of connections there. Write your list of people in your world that want the best for you, that would do these things for you. Write another column. You say, when's the last time I actually talked to this person one on one? Do I know
Mhm.
what they do for a living?
Mm.
Know who they're connected to? Might be surprised.
Yeah. I like that tip because I makes me think of friends that I have that are like, I don't even know my dad does.
It's
He's
so
just
true. Our
he's
culture,
just
it's so taboo, isn't it? To talk
yeah.
about these things. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a great idea for people to consider. Have I tapped this resource?
Mhm.
Have I really thought about this? Thank you for sharing those tips. I'm like learning things and I like want to share it. So I'm glad
Yeah,
that it's on the podcast.
me
And I love
too.
that you have the free resources. You're on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, and LinkedIn. I should
Okay.
always mention that too.
No.
And I welcome people to connect with me. My handle's just Lisa Virtue on there. Send me a DM. I'm all there on there too much. Making sure I'm up to speed on everything, but I will always invite friends to connect with.
Yeah. Awesome. I did have one more question as you're talking about the being more like intentional with your networking. Do you have any advice for people on how they can like, because it gets really discouraging really fast,
Mhm.
right? When you feel like you're spinning your wheels, you've been applying to all these places, you think you're doing all the right things,
Mhm.
and you're still not employed or finding a job. So, what is your advice as far as keeping your mindset positive? I know I had moments in my job search where I was just like, whatever. And I would just send out all these like quick apply
Yeah.
on LinkedIn and I can't care right now feeling. So,
Sure, like you need to do something, but you can't be strategic right now. Yeah.
yeah.
There's no energy. Sure. A couple of things there. One is there's no shame in any of it. We're all trying our best. So whatever you did, I get on calls with people, like discovery calls, and I'm like, okay, what have you tried so far? And some people are embarrassed to tell me. Oh no, no judgment. I've been there too. Let's just see what you've tried and see what you haven't tried.
Mm,
Where are the gaps? And so figuring out, you could even just journal it, right? Okay, here's what methods I have been trying. What have you been putting off? A lot of people do these incognito job searches because, again, most people are not me as a risk taker, like, throw caution to the wind. I'm just quitting. Like, I get it. It's not, that was the first time I had ever done that, by the way, which is why I was in a career for 20 years. So I had never
yeah.
done that. Um, when you are looking for a job and you don't want to tell anybody yet, a lot of times we also don't tell our close circle. So all of a sudden, that Uncle Larry that might know somebody that could totally give you that shot, is there any harm in calling him and just saying, "Hey, Uncle Larry, I know that you're successful in your career. I have just never asked you about it. I would love to hear more about what you do. And here's where I'm at a little bit of a crossroads." So there's these mentors that might be in our world that we don't know are in our world. You might have a terrible conversation with Uncle Larry. Don't blame me. Blame Larry, whatever. But it's warming you up to really putting it out in the universe. I really believe in the
Mhm.
magnetism effect. You can call it whatever you want, whatever your spiritual practice belief is or not spiritual. Something happens when we're intentional in our lives and we put goals out loud in writing and share it with others.
Mhm.
And that's the part a lot of people miss. They're like, I've been journaling, I've been trying to manifest it. Who have you told?
Mhm.
There's this power in making it go out loud. So when you're doing an incognito job search and it's quiet, or even if you've been laid off and you're in the middle of a job search, but you haven't been reaching out to other people, that's typically where we get frustrated. We're not having those social connections we used to have at work, and you're missing a lot of those pieces, and it can be a real drag. So, regardless of if you're getting interviews or not, I always tell people like take breaks during your job search, breathe, breathe in through your nose. So much research around that. Journal if that's helpful to you. If journaling's not helpful to you, what is? To get things out of your brain. Maybe it's talking, right? A lot of
Mhm.
people just go on a walk with a friend, just get it out. You don't need to solve problems. You just need to say it out
Yeah.
loud. Whatever that is for you, go do it. Don't neglect it. And then gratitude, another part that we all hear about, like gratitude journaling. Just say we do gratitude at night at dinner time for our family. And it is fascinating because I mentioned to you earlier, we're doing foster care now. And even foster children, first time they're at our dinner table, I say, here's what we do as a family. We talk about what we're grateful for today. Anyone will participate. So simple,
Mm.
but it changes the air.
Mhm.
It's fascinating. And even just like little things like I'm grateful for this potato, whatever it can be simple, right? But reminding ourselves there are so much to be grateful for in life. That always bolsters our energy
Mhm.
too. But this magnetism of putting it out there, talking to someone, of course, there's coaches like myself too that can absolutely help. Can't guarantee a job. So
Mm.
don't go into coaching thinking that,
Yeah.
but thinking, okay, maybe there's gaps that I can identify. Maybe I just need someone to walk with me in this journey, be there so I can vent a little bit or bare my soul. Because I don't want to tell Uncle Larry everything. I don't know him that well. You know? And our mentors at work, maybe you have great mentors, but you don't want to tell them you're in the job search yet. Because there's also that dynamic of you work together and there's
Yeah.
power plays and authority and things, and that might get weird. So, yeah, find your confidants and make sure you're sharing it.
Yeah. That support system along the way, whether it is family or a close friend or a coach, right? Someone that can help you work through the hard stuff
Mhm.
and also help you with taking those next actions and to keep you going instead
Exactly.
of
And I
instead of
would say
stalling.
to be really clear about what you're looking for. You wanna be open, like wide open, chest open. Be open to accepting what the universe is going to offer as opportunity when you put those intentions out. However, the more focused you are in those conversations and where you can tell someone, ideally, this would be my next step in my career and lay it out very quickly for them and concisely,
Mm.
then people can start helping and the universe can start helping more intentionally too.
Yeah, you could say, I want a new job, but that's so general, right?
What does that mean?
What kind of a job?
Yeah.
It's getting really specific because if you're too broad, then you never know what you're going to get.
Well,
And you also might accept a job offer that's not truly aligned with like where you want to be and what you want to be doing.
yeah. And a lot of people are thinking right now that are listening, but I don't know. I just got to get out of here. I can do
Yeah.
anything. I can do anything, Lisa. Tell me all this today. I know you can. By the way, yes, you can do anything. So put your intention out there as far as what kind of environment do you want to be in? What are the problems that you solve at work? You don't have to put a title to it necessarily, although it's very helpful if you do, if
Mm.
you really know what title you're going for. You don't have to, but be really specific about the kind of work you do so that people, like at a fifth grade level, can understand it. And that way, when you're talking to people and you're saying, again, ideally, I'm not going to say dream job right now either, because yes, there's dream jobs out there. I believe in it. I believe a lot of people find their dream job. Sometimes your dream job changes different chapters in your
Yeah.
life. Mine has. I'm going to say, what's your ideal next step? And if you start phrasing it that way for people, then they
Mm.
can visualize it. And they're also going to send you opportunities that align because a lot of people get really offended. Oh, I told my friend I was looking for something and they send me these jobs that are entry
Yeah.
level. And they have nothing little more they're not gonna pay me enough, or I'm a little more qualified, or it's not even the industry I wanna be in. It's, "Did you tell them what you did?"
Yeah.
"Oh, I just said I needed a job," right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly to your point, Brittany, being really specific and focused on what does that ideal situation look like? And if you're struggling with knowing that, then I highly recommend you stop searching for a job to try to find that, and you start doing that internal work. Sit with yourself, sit with tools that are out there, find that clarity for yourself.
Thank you for that reminder because really our answers are ever really outside of us.
Mm,
They're inside of us. And when you are looking at all these job descriptions, it really muddies the waters for you
mm,
if you're not sure what it is you're looking for. So there's a time and place in the career change process to start looking at those. But
yeah.
if you're not sure, start where you are, start within and do some of the exercises that you suggested for your mindset.
Yeah, and you're right. There will be a time, like, you have to find where you can find the jobs that are for that ideal situation. You do need to do that work later, but till like, for me, it was when I was in that transition in 2020, I went, "Gosh, okay, I know that I love working with people, love meeting new people. I'm really good at recruiting teams." And even my peers were like, "You should go into recruitment." I thought, "Something's not aligning there for
Mm.
me," right? I
Yeah.
could do that, probably enjoy lots of aspects of it. What I ended up landing on was the other side, which was helping job seekers. So being like an
Mm.
external coach, right? So I'm
Mm.
not your manager that's coaching you anymore. I can be completely unbiased.
Mm.
outside of the company helping you. And I wanted to do it focus around the job search and career transitions and challenges. Because there's a lot of different career coaches out there too, right? Executive coaches. And I love life coaching and all of that as well. I really love to do all that. But my niche is helping people when they're in that transition, telling that story, bringing all of their skills together to get opportunity. How do you communicate it? How do you say it in writing and out loud to get unblocked? And for people to notice you, because unfortunately our work does not speak for itself.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to really be able to communicate your uniqueness, like you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. I love this conversation. Thank you so much, Lisa. Would you like to share any services or offers that you have right now with the audience if they're interested in learning more from you?
Sure. Everything I want to promote is free and no big lift. I would love you to check out her Career Studio podcast too, because I'm also on the other end as a host and have some amazing guests as well. So we share a lot about what is in particular for women, all the unique challenges we go through throughout our careers and just being those mentors that we maybe didn't have or we did and we're paying it forward. So her Career Studio podcast. And if you like it, please leave a review because that's the way we can continue, as Brittany knows, continue our work, giving all these freebies. And then hercareerstudio.com. If someone is interested in working with me, you can go to hercareerstudio.com too and get connected and do a discovery call and all of that, just like any coach. But right now, check it out and be a looky-loo. I love it. Connect with me on LinkedIn and check out my funny TikToks. Please. Someone who's over 40 doing that a lot is draining. It's fun, but man, it's like a whole different world to have to do my hair and makeup all the time.
I love it. Thank you again, Lisa. It's been a pleasure. And I'm so glad that you were able to share your wisdom here on the podcast today.
Thank you, Brittany. It's such obvious I can talk all day about this. So thank you for letting me talk a lot.
Of course.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, and a huge thank you to our guest for sharing such valuable insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback helps others discover the podcast, and it means the world to me as I continue to bring you content that supports your career change journey. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're feeling stuck in a career that doesn't fulfill you anymore, I'm here to help. My one-on-one career coaching program is designed specifically for women who are ready to break free from the grind and discover a career that truly excites them. In our sessions, we'll uncover what's holding you back, identify your true passions, and create a clear, actionable plan to transition you into a career that aligns with your deepest values. You can get in touch with me directly at shiftyourdayjob@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on social media at shiftyourdayjob. I'd love to hear from you and support you on this journey. Until next time, I'm your host, Brittany Cates, and together, let's shift your day job.